Nothing.
I've got a deal, went back on market yesterday afternoon in Lakeshore, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 339. We got through, I thought we were getting through inspections. We agreed to put a new roof on and not charge the buyer a nickel. And then they came up with this laundry list of other things that were kind of silly. Sometimes we got to remember, don't hesitate to share this with agents as they pick a resale house apart. These are resale houses. They're not brand new houses. If you want to go to brand new, go spend another $100,000. So we kind of called these people to the mat and didn't care if they quit or not, and they walked away. So there you go.
How far along were you on it? Was it still in inspection
period? Renegotiation period. Agreed to put a brand new roof on it, impact resistant shingle, $10,500. Which I thought was a big give. And then, they're hitting us with all kinds of other one of the windows was cloudy, so they wanted a new window. I don't prefer those either, but it is cosmetic. I mean, the window still is doing what it's supposed to do. So it just didn't seem pressing compared to spending 10 grand on a roof. And then, some deck boards that definitely could be replaced sooner versus later. They're not dangerous or anything. There's just a lot of stuff like that. So we kind of just put our foot down. But anyway, if anybody has anybody under 350, Raymore address. Right now, I think there's 5 houses on the market in Raymore under 350. And 2 of them I think are 55 and older.
If they wanted all that, house would have been priced at 355 instead of 330.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. But, out-of-state buyer who just, came in, bought the house, went back to and so they were just relying on their agent for everything. And she was fine, but you could tell she didn't have any control over them. So they're going to find that when they go back out there, and they'll have to drive back to Kansas City to go house hunting again. And then they're going to be in multiple offers, big time in that price range, right? But then they may have made a mistake. We'll see. Maybe they made a mistake walking away from what was about $2 grand in knickknacks, I would say 1,500 or so, something like that.
I'm sure it'll be their agent's fault in the end on that deal.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised. And that's funny how that works.
And it kind of is. Their agent did not advise them on what they should probably accept and not accept.
Yeah. Heck, in that price range in Raymore, $2 grand. I mean, if you're saying I have to pay an extra $2 grand for this house to secure it, that's a no-brainer in that price range in Raymore.
Yeah, they paid, list price. They didn't pay above or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
list price minus a roof.
Yeah. And of course, then with the roof, they wanted to use their roofer, which generally speaking, if I'm going to have a massive financial commitment on one of my listings, it's going to be the people that I know doing it, that are reputable and things like that. So we struggled with that. We finally got past that, but it's just a lot of weird stuff. So, but anyway, it'll probably go right back to contract, I assume, but still just kind of frustrated for the seller a little bit.
I had my Harrisonville one come back to market last week, into last week. So I feel you. That was supposed to close on Tuesday. It fell out of contract Friday.
Ouch.
Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and get going on this case study here if you guys want. That'll be a little bit, maybe something fun to do.
Yeah.
Never created a case study, so be easy on me here. All right, so here's the property address, 719 Country Lane, there in Brookside. And then here, let's see if I can share my screen. Here. Cool. Here. All right, so here's our case study here. 719 Country Lane in Raymore. It's a ranch, 3-bedroom, 2 baths, about 1,500 square foot. The property is 3-bedroom, 2 bath. It's on a slab foundation. The owner owns it outright, and he doesn't want to jack with selling it or cleaning it out. He wants us to bring him an offer and just see how much we can bring him. The interior smells like cigarette smoke and dog urine. Kitchen cabinets are fair shape. They are functional but scratched. Countertops and appliances need updating. Both bathrooms are functional but dated. The entire house needs new flooring. The roof is 9 years old and we were unable to get anybody to look at it. We do not see any active leaks from the inside on the roof. Sewer condition is unknown, but the plumbing seems to be working just fine in the house. Exterior of the home is solid but needs power washing and minor landscaping. HVAC is 9 years old and seems to be working fine. So that's kind of the information that we were given on it. I wasn't sure if you guys wanted me to kind of run through some stuff that I would do, or if you guys want to take charge, or how you guys want to do it.
Lead the way, Jake.
All right. So
Go,
first I
Jake.
do is pull comps, because I need to know my range. So I just went for the last year in Brookside. Sometimes they're a little bit broader. I intentionally called my grandpa and asked to use his house because I know there's a lot of houses exactly like his in that neighborhood. Very easy to pull comps on this one. So let's look here and see. And so it looks like 277 to 325 is kind of our range, 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranches. Let's see what this one 325 sold for. This one has a 3-car garage, whereas my grandpa's has a 2-car garage. So I'd be printing all these out like Lonnie does, and then I'd mark mine as 2-car garage. Let's see here. Here we go. Here's a 2-car garage. This looks almost identical to it. And this is updated. This looks like exactly what it will be when we're finished with it. This looks really nice. So let's take a look here and see. 315. And it sold, when did it sell? In October. So we're looking about that 315, 320 range, kind of on our high end. So I'll put that.
Hey, Jake,
Yes.
your grandpa's is 1,500. There's like 4 floor plans in Brookside of villas.
Yeah.
And your grandpa's is the 1,500-foot plan. I think the one you just pulled up is the
Oh, that is
1,790.
That is, let's look for another 1,500 here. There's
But just
1,700.
FYI, something to think about, and Brandy and I were talking about this. Sometimes it might be the 1,500-foot plan, and then if it has like a covered screen deck that's heated and cooled, the agents will call that square footage. So sometimes if you check the tax roll real quick to see what the base square footage is, you can find out if that is in fact what they have there. Just thought.
Let's see. Oh, my reel is timed out on me. I need the Zoom thing to get out of the way. Yeah. Oh well. But yeah, this one I think was like 1,490 square foot. So let's see if there's anything this one's 1,500 square foot. So 85. This one actually looks just like it. Yeah, this one here is a really good comp on it too. That's actually what it kind of looks like right now, without the fake made up stuff on it. So yeah, this one's identical to it here. So 285 in January with 6,000 in concessions. So not bad. Let's see what this 277 looks like. That one's not bad. Ours is going to look better than this one though. It's all done. And then that 285, that one was nice, but I think our kitchen's probably going to look a little better than this when we're done. So maybe we can go a little higher than this. So I was thinking around 300 on it whenever I was kind of creating this in my head. What do you guys think on a price just off these comps? It looks almost identical to this, but after we fix it up, it'll probably be a little nicer. 300 seems kind of high on some of these.
I think the market for those is so hot that, especially if you're going to bring it turnkey and sharp as a tack, I think setting it at 3 and let the market tell you can't get it.
Okay.
Agreed.
The other feature with villas to look at is, again, some of these will have covered patios and even rooms back there. And those are real popular when those have that feature. So that's not going to often show up anywhere. You kind of have to go through that. And then 55 and older, the people that have the nice fencing like this one you're showing right now, You know, those kind of things are nice little add-ons that help offset the fact that maybe there's not a third car garage.
Right. Yeah, this one doesn't have any fencing on it, and it's got a nice back patio, but no covered porch or anything like that. It's got a gazebo back there, but not it's not covered. So it'd be on the smaller side of the square footage ones. It'd be just like this one. Yep, let's go through here. Yeah, the patio's like this, except for a little nicer. Yep, this is almost identical to it.
So let's use an ARV, after renovated value, upper twos to 300, so 290 to 300. If somebody's buying that house, they're gonna have to figure out then what the reno cost's gonna be.
Right.
Based on what you just described, assuming roof, heating, cooling are good, I would certainly think 20 grand or less could make that a really nice house. Full interior paint, kitchen upgrades, maybe checking a little bit in the bath. What are your thoughts there, Jake?
Yeah, so I was thinking a little higher than that, just with the kitchen needing updated and both the bathrooms needing updated.
Okay.
I think flooring, we're probably going to be at 5 grand or so on flooring between the entire house. And then you'll have probably 3,500, 4 grand in countertops. It's got a lot of countertops. And then are we going to repaint the cabinets? Or are we going to replace just the fronts of the cabinets and the hardware? Those can be kind of expensive. What else? And then I'd probably scrape the ceilings with the popcorn ceiling and spray them because it smells like smoke. So I'd probably do something like that. Then we need new appliances, which aren't terrible, like 2 grand or so in appliances. What else do we need here? And then probably at least, and I don't know on the bathtubs. Maybe we redo the tile in the bathroom and the vanities. Maybe update the toilets, but keep the bathtubs and maybe do tile around them. That wouldn't be too bad. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be crazy. I was thinking probably about 40 on the high side, because again, I don't know the sewer or the roof. I'm assuming the roof is fine, but yeah, hopefully we can get it done for under that. But any thoughts on any of that, you guys?
Yeah, Jake, you got to have some contingencies in there for things you just don't know about. Are you going in and running your own inspections, full inspections on something like this with the possibility of adjusting the price should you have these issues?
Depends on the buyer. A lot of the times what I'll do is I'll have the roof and the sewer line checked out if they'll let me. And a lot of the times I can't have that done. So I just kind of have to guess. And then my contingencies and miscellaneous are a little higher on those ones than that. But yeah, if they let me get a sewer line in and somebody up on the roof to check those out, I can kind of look at the rest of the house and kind of know. Or if there's significant foundation issues, then I won't buy it unless I can have my foundation guy go out there, because that could be $2,800 or $28,000. It's just sometimes they look almost the same. I mean, sometimes it's pretty obvious, but some of those it's not that expensive when you think it's going to be 20 grand, and vice versa.
Right. And is that something you talk to them about, Jake? Like, hey, I'd like to offer you this price for your house with the contingency. I want to look at these 3 items. If these are an issue, I can offer you this amount for your house, to give them like, this is better if you would let me do these 3 inspections, because I really don't think we have a problem. But if we don't have a problem, we're definitely good, and we're good at this price. However, if we do have a problem with something here, we need to have a different conversation, what I can offer you for the house. Do you see like that would be a benefit to them to want to let you do that?
Yeah. And that's usually how I'll phrase it to them, is just say, hey, just to make sure that I'm getting you the most. Because if these all check out, then I can give you top dollar.
Right.
If not, and it's unknown, then I can't give you as much. So yeah, so I usually will phrase it to them like that. But then I was gonna see what you guys thought, if we should do a flip on this one, or a rental, or what kind of our end goal would be for this person. It doesn't sound like a bad flip. It sounds like it's pretty quick. Make a great little rental. So what do you guys think on this one? I need to keep it as a rental, I'm sure.
It depends on the needs of your investor, of course. I mean, I always like to grab some cash with a renter, but there's unforeseen problems with that, possibly. But it all depends on the investor. Does he want a quick flip to get the cash and do something else, or what's his disposition or hers?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Nathan told me this. He says if you hold that property, will it keep you from getting other properties? So if it's your very first one and then you hold it, are you not able to get any more properties for another 3 years? Or if you flip it, can you turn that into 2 or 3 more properties and then maybe hold one of those 2 or 3 and then continue to go with it? So I think that's a good point. I don't know if that was Nathan who told me that or not. But yeah,
I
on
think
this
the other
one,
component there, Jake, is for somebody to make that assessment flip or retain, you've got to have a pretty good idea where's the rental market. Is this $1,600-$1,800 a month rental? Is it $2,200? I don't have any rentals in that area, so I don't know. But I would guess somewhere in the upper teens, right?
yep, that's probably where I'd guess on it. What do you guys think? I'm not super familiar in that neighborhood, but I'd probably say at least probably 1,800.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Is Joe on here?
Yeah, Joe would know.
You might get close to in the twos. I've got one down the street for about 2,400.
Okay.
But a little bit different, right there at the end. I can't even think of the name of that subdivision. But I got mine for a lot less than that because interest rates are so crazy high on these investment properties. Like you're just not going to make a whole lot of money on them. To me, it's like you might make more money on a flip in this scenario.
Right. Let's see if I've got. Don't make fun of me because I'm a nerd.
We love nerds.
Yeah, so here's if we were to put it on a 20-year note. Roughly, if we had 250,000 in it in a $300,000 house, we'd have to get about $2,400 and $2,400 a month in rent in order to cover the payment on a 20-year note. On a 30-year note, I believe it was 2,000 to cover it. So if we have 250 in it right now with interest rates being about 7%, might be hard to hold it as a rental. So I think this one would be a good flip.
Yeah, or maybe you have 250 all in, and now you've got a nice rental property, but you only mortgage 200. So then those analysis will look considerably better, right?
Yeah, that's have to calculate that, but yeah. Yep, and that's nice if we have an extra $50,000 laying around, we can throw at it.
Yeah, it's 500 a month on a 15-year, so it changes that scenario quite a bit.
There we go. Oh yeah. All right. So at this point too, I would be coming up with seller net sheets. And I did not have time to prep those. We all kind of know how to do that. So on 300,000 minus 6%, that's what, 282, and then minus all of our other stuff. It's another what, 5,500 or so, 5,000 on closing fees and things like that. 275, we clear about 275 if we get 300 out of it. About 265 if we get 295.
Yep.
265 to 275 clear. And then what does our profit margin want to be on this one? I usually say about 30,000.
Okay.
So 30,000. And then what do we say the reno was on this?
Up to 40.
40.
40,000. Right. So let's go 265 minus our 70,000 there. We'd be at about 195-ish on the bottom side to 205.
Looks like Tom's right in there.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah, that's, and then how would we present that to the client kind of deal? Would we want to say, hey, here's roughly about what your renovation would be. If you want to put 40,000 into it, I think you can get about 300. If you don't want to jack with it, I can give you this amount. Usually I'll have those just on like seller net sheets kind of laid out for them, just to say what they would clear. I'm not sure if you guys have any other ways that you do it or not.
Well, there's also a market, if you just put it on the market, I'm not going to say as is, but, without the renovation. So let's
Right.
just say that's listed for 270 or 265 or something. You've got a whole group of people that will look at it, and then they'll be doing this exercise going, okay, what renovation do I want to put in this? And there may be a possibility that being on the open market untouched would actually get them quite a bit more than what you or I are willing to pay them.
Let's say a lot of the times what I'll come into the play, these people want 225 for it. Would we buy it at 225?
I would not. Not with if you're going to spend 40 on reno, by the time you carry a note, by the time you have closing costs on the way out, you're probably getting down to a 20,000 or less margin.
Yeah. So, and that's again, the 40 was kind of on the high side, I think, but it kind of depends, because I know like Devon's costs are a little bit cheaper than mine because he has everybody in house. So sometimes he could do something at 220 that I couldn't do at 220. Or like Rustland, they could buy a bunch of property probably cheaper than or more expensive than I could, just because of their ability to do so many things. But
Let's do my night routine.
do what? Oh, I thought somebody said something. But yep, all right. But that was pretty much the case study there. Anybody have any questions or want to go over anything else on that?
Don't be shy, guys. Ask questions. You ask questions of me all the time on this kind of stuff.
hey, Jake, you ever get anybody that's offended when you lay this out for them of what the overall number looks like for them to receive for the sale of their house?
So it depends on the relationship sometimes.
Yeah.
That's why I have all the numbers laid out and I say, hey, here's what my profit has to be. There's what it is. This is just what it is. I don't want to offend you. I try to lay it out and it's very rare that anybody gets offended. I always give them that option of, hey, we can go to market as is, and we might clear this, but then we have to kind of jack with going to market. This is the easy button here. You're obviously not going to get as much. Usually they kind of know that, but sometimes people just get offended anyways because their house is like this and they want 285 for it.
Right.
There's just no, and usually those just don't end up working out.
Yeah, in those cases, you're wasting your time to plan on, hitting them with an easy button type situation. Really have no choice but bring it to the open market, let everybody do their own analysis on this and see where the chips fall. But you want to be real careful you don't get into a conversation, you end up with nothing. You end up with no listing and nothing to buy. So that word safety net, the word safety net has always helped us a lot, saying, hey, as this plays out, in the event that we're not getting the results we want, if you want us to come in and kind of create a safety net offer, whether I've divulged what that is ahead of time, then we're happy to do that. Then all of a sudden you bring extra service to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's happened to me one time. I talked myself right out of a sale because I wanted to offer a lower price with all the renos that needed to be done. And after the family got back together, they were worried that if I listed it, I wouldn't get the highest price because I came in with that offer.
Yeah, I remember you sharing that with us. That's happened to us, I'm sure, before too. So you get better at it over time. You can feel out who are the people to have that conversation with and who are not. Sometimes, in fact, I will tell them, hey, I own a lot of houses. I have no desire to buy your house, but I'm a business person. If this isn't working out for you, I'll be happy to kind of have a value added service where we can come in and get you an offer to make it all go away. So, sort of a safety net. And that actually ends up playing pretty well for them.
Yeah.
Lonnie, Mark Spain did that down, I think it was in Atlanta. He has that, we'll buy your house if it doesn't sell within a certain amount of time. And so I think that's that safety net, kind of what you're hitting on right there, to where hey, we'll cover our bases here. If this doesn't work out the way you hope to, or, you know, whatever, if it's unrealistic and they go to market. However, if it doesn't sell, we will buy it for X amount if it doesn't sell. And I think that's one of he's trying to create a scenario where it still looks like it's a teamified type of deal and doesn't put them on the other side of the negotiating table right there as you're trying to secure a listing at the same time.
The only counter I could see to that is, and this is me being devil's advocate, I mean, they're intentionally trying not to sell my house so they can buy it at a deal. But
I would show them all the sales that we have.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, I was thinking of Rusty's thing where they're like, the family got in and was saying,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, okay, I could see them coming back and say, maybe they're not trying to sell my house so they can get it for a deal.
Yeah, lessons learned and better choice of words going forward for sure.
So, yep, I think Lonnie's right. Usually if we try to phrase it as a value add instead of option number one,
Mhm.
I think that's the kind of best approach to that. But and some of these that are like this, usually they're not usually they don't want to jack with the house. It's usually inherited or something like that. So a lot of the times they don't want to jack with it. So you don't have to be so delicate. They're like, just give me your price. It's more about numbers or ease, like ease of transaction, things like that.
I'm usually shocked at how many people want the easy button. I don't know why I'm shocked, but it just, I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess if I was given a $500,000 house and you're going to give me 400,000 for it today and I don't have to jack with it, then maybe, okay.
Well, I think a lot of that is where we're at in the cycle of the market too. You know, over the last 5 to 7 years, these real estate values are up 50+%. So a guy's $200,000 house is 300, 350, whatever that might be. So they've had a massive run up in value. So if they're pulling some of that off the table, that doesn't hurt as bad as say the last 5 to 7 years we've been flat or God forbid down, then it lands completely differently.
But
These Brookside villas, like you just pulled up, the ones that were rough during the downturn, you could buy anywhere from 110 to 130,000.
heck, that's about what they were. I think they bought this one brand new for 110.
It is less than what they
01.
were new. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And they couldn't give them away. They would sit there and linger on the market. You know, it was a tough market. I mean, nobody wanted to take any risk, and it seemed risky. And you know, in hindsight, obviously, you should have been buying with both hands. But you know, banks were tight, so you know, it was hard to get the credit lines we can get today. But yeah, I remember a lot of those going down at 120, 130, that kind of stuff over and over again. And at the time, it didn't seem like that great a deal. Obviously, now, if that was, let's call that 2008, and you're, you know, 16 years, 17 years later, and now that's a $300,000 house.
And paid off.
Yeah.
And I was being foolish and like trying to get my driver's license in 08. I should have been buying houses.
Easy, Jake.
Playing golf and had a Honda Accord. That was the best year ever. But oh man, but that's pretty much all I had for you guys. What other things do you guys want to talk about? You guys were real talkative during the case study, so it lasted a lot longer than I thought. Nothing.
I'll jump
Come
in
on,
real
folks.
quick. Oh,
What do you got, Ryan?
real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Rusty and her team. They stepped in huge for us this week. We had a situation with a 1930 build on acreage that had wood inside of the septic tank as it was built out, and it was a mess. And her and her team were able to come in and get us a good bid on what it's going to take to make that right, completely replace it. And we were able to get that negotiated with the sellers, replacing the whole system for us, keeping the transaction together when it was pretty iffy, because we're looking at almost 10% of the cost of the sale is what this is going to be to replace this system. So huge shout out to her team jumping in so quick and helping us out.
Yeah, they are awesome. They're always helping. It seems like everybody. At least once a week, she's saving somebody in the office.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, for those of you that kind of went to our inaugural kickoff for our wealth building and investment club, I think we had 32 people there, something like that, and had a few drinks afterwards. If you didn't, but would like to be a part of that, then, just reach out to us, maybe reach out to Brandy. Not everything works in everybody's schedule, but, we'll just see where our group wants to take that. We probably had 20 things that people brought up saying, hey, I'd like to know more about this, this, and this. Some extremely narrow and focused, like 1031 exchange, some much more broad, like, where do I find these houses? So we'll get the people in front of our people to share ideas on locating these properties, different methods to finance these properties, that sort of thing. And then just from there, whatever this group wants out of this, that's the direction we'll take it. So anybody have any feedback on that? I can't remember who all was there yesterday, but I know probably a lot of people that were on this call.
Yeah, no, it was great. There's a lot of information.
Some of the feedback that I got was, I think starting off with where to get the money and what the money looks like and what get it. Okay, Lonnie, I got the money. Now, kind of it. I feel like that's a direction that a lot of people are looking for. Maybe if we're gonna create a strategy for that or whatever, I think a lot of people, okay, how much money do I need? And then, where do I get the rest of it? Who do we we already talked about some local lenders, some rural banks and stuff like that are good places, but I think people would like a little bit more direction in that area.
Yeah, Micaiah just posted it, spot on, because we can do all this other stuff, figure out how to find them. But if we don't have the money, it's kind of pointless. We tell our buyers, find your money before you find your house. It's part of our buyer consultation. I've said it a million times, and Annette said it a million times. Nathan's probably said it a million times. So we need to do the same in our world, right? So what are our outlets going to be, either for us if we're acquiring them or for our investor client? Investors will run you ragged if you're not careful. So we've got to be sure they're legit and they have the ability to take some stuff down. If they're out there, first of all, if they're not cash, they're at a little disadvantage sometimes, but then they at the very least have to be pre-approved with a rock solid bank letter and that sort of thing to get into that arena. Then you talk about, buying things on the courthouse steps. Foreclosures aren't massive right now. Could we ever see a spike in that? We certainly could, but to play in that arena, that's a different ball game altogether. You've got to have some capital. You've got to be able to maneuver quickly. So we could get into a market where we see more of that. What else? Anybody else come out with any ahas on that?
No, the only other thing I'd add is, in that particular game, that kind of what I learned is if you're going to be successful, and I just put ready, willing, and able, are you ready to do this? Are you willing and are you able? Do you have the money? Because if you're going to have success, you got to typically move pretty quick, right? So, and part of it is developing the mindset around of what it is to be an investor, so you can start kind of wrapping your head around that a little bit. And so what is your determining your motivation, why do you want to do it, what do you have the stomach for, and then certainly where do I get the money, or where do I get the rest of the money? So
I thought this page was awesome that you gave us.
Yes, give Brandy credit for that.
Thank you, Brandy. In the last 74 years, the housing market's gone down 7 years, and 5 of them were like in 07 to 2011.
So I actually did some math on that sheet there, and if you take the last 10 years and you did have those 2 really big years, your return on your appreciation was almost 8%. But if you take those 2 big years out, it was still 5.7% over the last 10.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when people buy real estate, the capital appreciation is a massive component, and there's an expectation there that's been set by the track record. And albeit that one little period of time, which was a big booger, right? It's been very predictable. Stock market, no different. People when they invest in a 401k, when they buy these mutual funds and all that, they're buying the history of what the stock market has produced over many, many years, knowing that in any given year it can go up or it can go down. The S&P 500 went up over 20% the last 2 years. Okay, can you imagine if that's what it did every year? Everybody would be dying to get in the stock market and they wouldn't even want any real estate. But the reality is we know that correction will happen, and it can't, that's not sustainable. But you talk about 9% to 10% range, that's where the S&P can be over a long period of time. And then when we're putting $5,000 a year into a SEP or something like that, that's why after 20, 30 years, that can turn out to be a substantial amount of money. And I didn't get to it yesterday, but I have graphs with all that kind of stuff too. There's one exercise I do, if somebody can say, where's Silas? Is he on this thing? By the way, tell Silas to start getting on this call. He's young. He's 21, I think. You put 10 grand into a mutual fund, and let's say it gets 9%. Also throw $300 a month. Oh, that's a lot of money. Throw $300 a month in, and be sure that it's a tax deferred type account. That number is massive after 30 years, and it's enormous after 40. $300 a month. First of all, you got to save 10 grand. Not easy. Okay, that's Dave Ramsey's rule. Get 10,000 in liquidity first in your life, then get $10,000 that you can invest, and then $300 a month. Now, $300 a month sounds like a lot. The average car payment's $7 something, right? Do you have a $700 car payment? I'm not looking at the screen. Yes, you do. So that's the average car payment. I think it's $750 actually now. So half a car payment. But if people can design their financial life, especially these younger people, if they can design their life thinking like that, then they'll make their purchases around that as a fixed thing in their life. Like if you have student loans, you come out of college right now, for the next 15 years, you're paying $300 a month in student loans. You just design your life around that because that's a given, right? If you have kids and they go to certain schools, you design your life around that expense. But if people will design their life around investing like that, they have assured themselves of what this will look like on the back end. It's within what we can control, obviously. So it can be pretty exciting. If you sit down with financial planners that know how to present that really, really well, it's like makes you wonder why anyone in their 20s isn't laser focused on that. Because we can can anybody piss away $300 a month faster than me? Yeah, I mean, a Starbucks a day, right? That's probably way more than that now I think about it. But, it's amazing how that can have such a compounding effect. Anybody have any thoughts on those kind of concepts?
I know Dave Ramsey does a scenario where you invest from ages 18 to 26, a certain like $500 a month or whatever, and then stop investing at age 26. And then at age 26 to 65, you invest $500 a month. And then one that invested when they were 19 to 26 for those 7 years has more money at the end of the year, or at age 65. Just
because you got time. The time component's actually one of the most critical pieces. And now if you start this at age 50, it's going to look different at 65, right? Because you don't have a chance to compound. But, if you're Silas and you're 21, basically you should be asking he and his wife need to be sitting down and going, hey, how rich do we want to be on the back end? And what are we willing to do to make that happen? My nieces and nephews, they get sick of me telling them this all the time, but every time they're around me, they're going to hear the same story. And if they're not heading, I have one niece that's already heading down that path. She's well on her way. And they're designing everything in their life around basically what I just shared. It's really cool.
That's what my kids have done. We've had them set up on that investing since they were 16 years of age.
Wow.
They're on the 40-year-old $1 million path.
Yeah. Yeah. How exciting.
Not all of them
Wish I'd have known this stuff.
Yeah. Not all of them get it. We got 1 out of 2. It happens. It's, just keep having the conversations. All I can say.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say if it doubles every 7 years, and this is kind of a good thing to think about. Say if you wait 7 years and your investment portfolio goes from 100 to 200, then 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 1.6, and then say you waste, instead of investing 7 years sooner, that 1.6 could have been 3.2, but you waited 7 years, cost you 1.6 million, because that last double is, I mean, it's incredible how much that compounding helps. I used to do financial advising. This stuff gets me all excited. I'll talk to anybody about this stuff if you guys have questions on any of that stuff. I love all that stuff. That's a good one too, Lonnie. Is there a like? I think it'd be a fun topic, like investing in real estate versus investing in mutual funds and things like that. Like, when should somebody be financially secure enough to start investing in real estate instead of just putting it all in the stock market?
Yeah. Well, and diversification is important too. It's we're really poor there. My family, we're like 85% real estate. That's so when the real estate market goes whack-a-doodle one way or the other, we're exposed a little bit, just like we were in 08 to 2012. And in a small, only 5% of our stuff is in stocks. So that's our choice, and we decided to invest in what we know. But I would tell most people to balance that out. You're in an industry right now that gives you the ability to fund your IRAs and things like that to avoid some of your taxable income. You have to take advantage of that. And the question to your accountant should be, what's the maximum I can do? And then at least start with that in mind. If you can't do the maximum, don't do the maximum. But typically what we see is if somebody's going to put $5,000 away, pay themselves in like an IRA or something, it might save them $1,500 in taxation. So the 5,000 really cost them only 3,500. They're already up 1,500 just doing the exercise. That's a real basic way of looking at it. But Jake, you can speak to that. It's in that ballpark, right?
Yeah. I like to do kind of I'd rather pay taxes now because I have kids and a house and write-offs and stuff like that. And I'm paying, say on that, I think a Roth IRA is $7,000 a year that you can put in per person, I think. So if we can put $14,000 in as a couple, and then I pay taxes on that, and then it grows for the next 35 years, and now I pull it out at the end of the time and say now it's worth 1.4 million. That's all tax free. I don't pay any taxes on that coming out. Versus on an IRA, I had the $7,000 and I got to write that off, and I saved $2,000 in taxes. But now it's worth 1.4. 30 years from now, I don't think taxes are going to get any cheaper. And that's on a larger dollar amount. So now I'm taxed on a higher dollar amount and a higher tax amount. So I like to pay taxes today just because I have kind of more write-offs and stuff right now. And my income's hopefully not as high as it will be in the future. But like your situation may be different.
Well, a lot of people are also, I'm already in my 30s or early 40s and it's too late and all that kind of, that's horseshit too. There's plenty of time. So it is tougher once we get in our 50s and beyond to get serious and make a huge, move the needle immensely. But you just have to be more laser-like focused. I mean, that's just how it works. But Amber and I really didn't get our shit together until I was 36. So, but when we did, we put our head down and went pretty fast. And what I was telling Devon and Nate the other day is, with very little, and this came up in the meeting, with little exception, most of us will never earn enough in a given year consistently to really build massive wealth unless we figure out how to take the money we earn and buy assets that other people can pay off for us. Rental property being just the ideal component of that. It's just how many people that make $1 million a year, 2 million a year? Not very many, right? Just a handful. So you can make 200, you can make 400. You'll never get massive by doing just that. You've got to invest it in an appreciating asset that somebody else can pay off the note for you.
Anything consistently. Heck, teachers are like the number 5 most popular millionaire job. Like they were above surgeon. They don't make a lot of money, but they're very systematic about how they use their funds and how they use their money. We can make a whole lot more than a teacher can as realtors, but do we have the discipline to set it up to where we can either buy the real estate or invest it in something to be successful? I mean, heck, the thing that sucks about real estate is if we stop selling tomorrow, then our income is done. We don't get renewals or anything like that on any of this stuff. So if we make $400,000 every year and we spend 405, we are screwed when we want to retire. We're going to be working until we're 90.
That's why we got to diversify. You can't have all your eggs in one basket. You know, have
Mhm.
different types of streams of revenue. But I think finding something in addition to what we do, you know, for some monthly reoccurring or be very disciplined.
Yeah, I think if you don't have any investment at all, start out with just a Roth IRA. I think $50 a month is their minimum. I started doing that when I was like 20. And then and then every closing you throw another 250 at it or another 500 at it, that's better than nothing. So I mean it's and $50 a month is nothing. And then so next year maybe we'll add 55 a month at it. And then if you just systematically increase it by $5 to $10 every single year, and again, that's very, very minimum. You can do a whole lot more than that, but I mean if you just start with something, it'll be a whole lot over time.
Yeah,
And if you
it's
get
it's
people
it's boring until it's not, and then all of a sudden it gets kind of exciting. But it might be really boring for 10 years, 15 years, and then all of a sudden, you know, it starts to look like a real number that can, and then you're saying, wow, what's this going to look like in 10 years from here? And then all of a sudden it's a massive number, and then you get buy-in. And but I like Rusty's situation with multiple streams. You know, they're obviously good at the retail business. They have this amazing other business. They're invested in real estate. They've got that business. You know, there's just multiple things coming into their world. So if any one thing were to have a good year, bad year, or whatever, you have other things to offset it. I think that's really, really exciting.
What do they say? 7 streams of income is the goal.
That's a lot.
Yep.
Mhm. But you can diversify within real estate too. There's so many different areas you can jump into, the short term, long terms. Obviously, I mean, there's commercial stuff you can get into. I know Nate's into some of that. So if you're doing what you know and what you love, you're already in the business. So there's opportunities there all around us if we're learning and studying around those things. So that's some of the stuff that we're working on as well. But there's lots of opportunity because it is a little bit nervous, you know, getting out there. Like, I don't know what investments, you know, what stocks to buy or what mutual funds to get into, right? You got to have a good broker to help you through that scenario. But just doing something there doesn't have to be huge, like Jake said, but do something in that arena at least. And then we can really dive in and get aggressive where we're comfortable in a market that we work in every day.
Heck, if you're consistent with it and you're just not great at picking stocks, you could accidentally become a millionaire if you just put a couple $100 in a month every year and you just put it in just the top one on the bar. They say, okay, S&P, the whatever, just click that top one that's green. You could almost just accidentally, I mean, it might not be the most efficient. Get a broker, they'll do a lot better for you, but everybody's always afraid of the market tanking and things like that. I mean, what are you retiring tomorrow? Same with real estate. Like when Lonnie was saying it, the real estate values go down and they're taking a loss. You're only taking a loss if you sell that property today. If you hold on to it for 2 years, it's back at a gain. Same with stocks.
You bring up a good question there, Jay. Hey, Lonnie, what happened to your rent rates during the worst real estate crash in our memory?
Yeah, oddly, they didn't really go down. I mean, people still
They
have to have a
actually
place
went
to live.
up due to the extreme amount of demand for a rental property. With all the rent rates went up about 20% during that time period, if I remember right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for us, as I recall, and it's been a while, but we, rates, we were able to continue to tweak them up, but because the economy as a whole was kind of struggling, we saw a lot of our tenants struggling. So our delinquency, some of those kind of things that we have almost none of that. We had a lot more of that than we had in the past. So then the true rent that maybe got into our pocket wasn't quite as much, but yeah, it certainly didn't pull back, and we didn't have to discount the rents to get people in. Everybody needs a place to live.
And just like housing values for the most part, or stock market, as things tend to go up, they tend to stay up. You don't see a whole lot of regression, and that's why we're kind of it ties into the time on task over time. But I just thought it was an interesting point to say, hey, rent rates go up sometimes when the real estate market itself is going down. So just the levers that are right. So
Yeah, that's a good on diversifying too. Have
Yeah, we've got a system in place where in the spring and in the fall, we go through the rent, all of our leases, and we try to figure out who's ready for a little kick. And you know, there may be 20 of the 55 people get a letter saying, "Hey, your 1,200 a month is 1,250 effective next month. Here's the 1 year lease to sign." And you know, there's a little gritching and moaning sometimes, but everything else in our world's going up. So you know, and then Amber looks back and she's like, "Wow, I just gave myself a little raise by sending out that letter." So it's just there, it's a cool business to be in. You know, and again, we're in an industry where we got a front row seat in all this. We get to decide if we want to participate as an invest or work with people that want to invest. I'd love to see more people be the investor versus work with the investor.
I got a question on that rent, Lonnie. With taxes and insurance and stuff going up so crazy here the last couple of years, are rent prices raising at the same rate that is?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, most people that own property, they're analyzing all that. I mean, if you get massive increases, it's hard to just immediately hit everybody with a massive increase. That's probably not good business. But if you have renewals, if people have been with you a while, it's time to give them a little letter. And I don't really ever feel obligated to explain myself. If the people reach out and say, "Hey, why is my rent going up?" Blah 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 blah. You know, I'm happy to share with them some of the examples that you just mentioned. And by the way, real estate taxes higher. I pay those. The insurance on this building has went up dramatically. Every time I have to send a sub out, a plumber, an electrician, they charge way more than they used to. These rents have to go up just for us to make the same amount of money. And once that's explained to anybody, they're done gritching and moaning. And if they want to continue to gritch and moan, then they can find another place to live.
Make it 100.
So you say usually you don't cash flow a whole lot on the first 5 years, and then you start cash flowing later. Is that because the rent raises, or did you refinance to get the payment down, or how do you start cash flowing on those, or is it just wealth building?
Yeah, this isn't for everybody, but we took the approach that we were okay with having a $1,000 mortgage payment and also the rent be 1,000. We were okay with that, which doesn't, isn't good business, right? After expenses, you're guaranteed to lose money every year. And if you have vacancy, you're definitely going to lose money. But that was okay for us because we wanted to get the things paid down fast. So if you look at the amortization schedule of a 15-year note versus 30, and it's dramatically different. And because I didn't get my shit together seriously until I was in my mid 30s, I couldn't do anything that had a 30-year payout. I'm like, that's not exciting. 15 is, and now we're 24 years into that journey. So yeah, but that's not for everybody. There's a lot of people that have to have that positive cash flow, or at least have a good chance to not lose any money in any given month. That's fine too. But for a lot of people, I'd probably tell them to at least look at their options and think about what their end goal is. Do I want an extra couple $100 a month off each unit, or would I really like the peace of mind to know if I bust my ass for 15 years, I own it all free and clear? And so maybe I didn't have any cash flow or even negative cash flow for 15 years, but in year 15, it's a home run.
What about you, Nate? Have you seen 20-year notes that kind of get any, like, that break even, or do you have to put it on a 30-year note to see some cash flow?
I like the 20-year model with the higher prices, and it's pretty close to break even to $100 a month of positive cash flow that ends up getting consumed by, repairs and things like that. But, every property that you own is a forced savings account. And that's why in that meeting yesterday, I was like, a rental property, you kind of lose money the first 5 years. And then the next 5 years, you're like, okay, things are getting better. And then after 10 years, you're like, why didn't I buy 20 more houses 10 years ago? So I think understanding that, going into that eyes wide open, because once you get to paid down or paid off properties in our profession, if we're going in and doing deals right every step of the way, you insulate yourself from losses, in my opinion. And the upside over a long period of time is it beats any stock that I've ever reviewed. So that's why I like real estate. So
working on a calculation here, because say if you buy $100,000 property and you put 20 grand down on it, In 20 years, it's worth roughly about 530, and you pay $20,000 for that. So let's see what kind of rate of return we would need over 20 years to get that return. This is just the nerd in me coming out. Sorry, guys. Oops. That's a lot more than that. Give somebody else talk while I figure this out.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, technically in theory, if you have a family structure set up properly and things like that, it can be an infinite return. It just keeps creating returns infinitely. So
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of our take on it, and that's what we've done is just long term and to create generational wealth. So I think it just depends on the person. Because a lot of times I've had to do the 30-year just because when I started doing this, in the beginning I didn't, but on some of these last ones with the interest rate so high, I had no choice but to do a 30-year in order to break even with my monthly dollars.
maybe you come along a flip 5 years down the road that creates a nice little return, and then you can just say, boom, I'm gonna go ahead and pop that out and kill that 30-year note, own it free and
Yep.
clear. So.
Mhm.
Or if we see a massive refi boom, let's just say they screw this thing up big time and rates have to go dramatically lower, and we see 4% on a 30-year note, or anything around that. That means at 3.5 on a 15. That'd be your ideal chance to roll that 30 into a 15, probably leaving your debt obligations in the ballpark of where it is, but shave all those years off. That's an exciting conversation.
That's a great plan. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I earned a lot of faith from people back in my mortgage days when everybody bought houses at 10% forever and it got down to 7%. And instead of them saving $200 a month by refining back to a 30-year loan that they've already paid 3 years on, 5 years, I was flipping almost everybody to 15s. And their payment would usually be about the same or even go down a smidge because the gap from 10 to 7 was pretty big. But I would show them, hey, we just took 12 years of mortgage payments. Let's calculate that. P&I, 12 years,
thousands of dollars of interest. And yeah.
Then the referrals would just come in. People were like, hey, you got to go talk to Lonnie about this. Now, sometimes they didn't want to do that. They were just like, nah, we'd rather save $200 a month or $300 a month or whatever it might be. And that's fine. Everybody's situation's different. But if they're really thinking bigger, you guys have heard me say, I don't think anybody over 40 should be taking out a 30-year mortgage. It'll never happen because of discriminatory practices. But if somebody was advising them financially, I just think that needs to be at some point. We've got to figure out 30-year mortgages. And by the way, there was 40-year mortgages kicking back up in the fall, so I'm sure we'll be talking about those here pretty soon. Just doesn't work. I mean, it absolutely doesn't work. It works for the bank really well.
Yeah, I wish I was a bank. I see all those numbers and I'm like, man, I picked the wrong side.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just reran those numbers. Say if you buy $100,000 house, you put $20,000 as your investment. Over 20 years, it's worth about $320 at the end of the 20. Your renter paid the remaining 80. So really, you only put 20 grand into that investment, and now it's worth 320. It's about a 15% annual rate of return, which is better than the stock market. Right? Stock market's usually about 10. I mean, that's not a bad rate of return.
Why we're doing that.
It's like the 4 pillars, like Lonnie was saying, the appreciation and then the renter paying down the debt, plus the tax benefits. And then if you get any cash flow from it as well, say you make $50 a year after expenses. No, but that's I hadn't really run that scenario for a while.
Hey, before you close out, I want to throw out an interesting Brian Buffini stat. So in 2024, millennials spent 3 times the amount on online gambling that they did investing in the stock market.
Jeez.
There you go.
So
people tell you they can't afford to buy a house today. They may want to look at how they're investing their money. So
their parents need to teach them how to run spreadsheets and save money.
Yeah.
That's failure.
No, and he actually said it's almost kind of a college epidemic. Yeah. Online sports gambling. It's like it's the new drug. So it's a big deal. Yeah. So
That's Gen Z. Us millennials, we're out of college.
Yeah.
well,
Don't blame me.
that is true. But in his stat,
Yeah.
he did say it was millennials 3 times more on online sports gambling than investing.
I knew a few Gen Xers that had that problem back in college.
That's crazy. All right. Well, it's 11:01. Thanks. Thanks,
Hey,
everybody.
guys.
Thanks, Jake.
Great
Have a
conversation.
have a good
Great
holiday
call,
weekend,
Jay.
everybody.
We'll see ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Something.